And I just want to take some time, go through some tips, some methodologies to get this score. It is very possible and reasonable to have an excellent credit score. It's possible. So I want to start from that basis that we know it is possible, it's doable to get a high credit score. First, I want to start with and go through the methodology in terms of is our credit score, what is it comprised of? How do we get the credit score that we get? Where does that come from in terms of the factors? And then do some tips that I actually utilized in my own life to build my credit score. And these work, and these methods work to get a high credit score. First, I want us to start with what is a good credit score. So we'll know this. And as we can see, a good credit score varies based on the credit reporting agency. Experian and Equifax classify good credit score as 760 and above. So for those two credit reporting agencies, you need at least a 760 to be deemed good credit, and 670 to 739. If you fall in that range, that's good. If you're 670 to 739 on Equifax and Experian, you have good credit. Now, if you go from 740 to 799, that's very good credit at those two bureaus. So 740 to 799 is very good credit. And then if you go from 800 to 850, that's exceptional credit. You in the top 5% of this country, if you in that 800 to 850, that's exceptional credit. You in exceptional range. And you can even go above that at those two bureaus. At TransUnion, you need at least a 720 to have a good score. So at TransUnion, if you had a 670, you deemed fair credit. You are not good credit, you're fair credit, because they have a high ranking system. So you need at least a 720, and you have to get a 720 to 780 to move to their B level of credit, which is considered very good. And then you need a 781 to 850 at TransUnion to get what is known as an A grade. That's where you have the best credit. So if you're a 781 to 850 at TransUnion, you are considered outstanding credit, and you'll get whatever you ask for. And as you know, your credit score determines a lot. It determines if you're going to get approved for something, and it also determines the rate of interest you're going to pay. Credit is so important because two people can drive the same car and you're paying totally different rates. Two people can have the same Mercedes, and one person is paying $580 a month, and the other person is paying $950 to drive the exact same car as the other one, based on credit. And we want to have excellent credit scores so that we get low interest wherever it is possible to get the lowest rates we can. And so this gives us our ratio in terms of what is deemed good credit. So you know where you stand. If you're 670 or above at Experian Equifax, you know where you're at. You good, very good, or excellent. And at TransUnion, if you're 720 or above, you're good, very good, or excellent based on that score. Now let's look at the factors that make up our credit score. We're gonna go through this just to see the factors. The highest percentage, 35% of our credit scores are based on, do we pay on time each month or not? Paying on time is the number one factor. That's 35% of your credit score is, do you pay on time or not? If you do, you should give yourself applause, and that's excellent. And if you don't, make sure that you get it together and start paying on time. This is the most critical factor if you want a good credit score. You must pay on time every month consistently. 35% of your score is based on paying on time every month. So payment history, 35% is our largest factor. Our second largest factor is keeping your credit utilization low. And that's using no more than 30% of your credit. You have a $10,000 credit limit, you cannot use more than 3,000 before your credit score is hurt. It doesn't matter if you pay every time or not. If you go over that 3,000 for 10,000 in credit, it shows that you need credit too much. Credit utilization is vital because the key to having a good score is to have access to a lot of credit, but not to use it. It doesn't make sense, but that's the key, is to get as much credit as possible, and we're going to talk about this later, but not to use it. So when people tell you have one credit card, that is good, but honestly, to have the highest scores, that doesn't lead to the high score. It's good sense. It makes good financial sense. The person can't manage it, but they'll never have the top score because you have to have access to a lot of credit. And so one of the things we want to do is remember that credit utilization comprises 30% of our score. 30% of your score is based on how much credit you have. That's why if a card has a low credit limit, it can do a lot of damage. Because if your credit limit's only 2,000 and you said, I only charge 1,500, well, that's a high utilization rate. And so it'll hurt you. It hurts your score. Even though it's paid on time, even though you're taking care of business, it will still hurt the score because it's too much credit is utilized. And so 30% of your score is based on credit utilization. And they add this up by looking at everything, which we'll talk about. That includes your mortgage, that includes your automobile. So if you owe on your car, and we'll talk about the percentages and those things, they add it all together and see how much credit were you given, how much credit are you using. So 30% is that ratio. Keeping your paid off accounts open, your credit history. 15% of the credit score is based on credit history. 15% of our credit score is based on the credit history. That means what's our history of credit? Cards that you had for 10, 15 years, the mortgage that you got 20 years ago, the car you got 12 years ago. Those accounts, if they're open, keeping your paid off accounts open. Paying off a car is wonderful because you don't have to bill anymore, but it also decreases the credit over time in terms of our credit score because it's paid off. It's closed. Once an account is closed, over time, it doesn't help your credit anymore. It no longer helps you. So things we paid off in the past, once we get past a few years, they no longer help us. So it's very important to pay attention to our credit history. And that's 15% of the score is credit history. The next percentage is the credit mixture. 10% is the mixture of our credit accounts. That means we need a nice balance of different loans. So if someone just has credit cards, they don't have a credit mixture. Whereas if another person has a mortgage and they have a credit card, that's more of a mixture. Or if they have a bank loan and they have another type of loan. These loans are known as, and I'm gonna just define them quickly. Installment loans are what are basically what your mortgage is and what your car note is. It's an installment loan. Same payment every month, paid off after so much time period. So a 30-year mortgage, 4% interest, same payment each month, paid off in 30 years. That is an installment loan. Car payment, $520 a month, 5 years, paid off the 60th month. That is an installment loan. Credit cards are known as revolving loans because a credit card doesn't technically have a payoff date. You can pay for a credit card forever if you never pay it off. It's known as revolving credit. Revolving credit is based on how much of it you pay, is how much access you get. And the best credit scores have installment loans and revolving credit loans. You have both. You have a nice mixture in your portfolio in terms of your credit report. That gives you the highest score. So you don't just want one type of credit. You need a nice mixture, which gives us 10% of the credit score. And the last category is new credit. Those new accounts are 10%. So if you don't have any new credit in the last couple years, last year or two, it actually doesn't help your score. It doesn't hurt you, but it's not helping your score. So you're losing out on 10% because there's no new credit. So if you haven't had a loan, you say, I haven't borrowed money in 10 years. Well, that's actually hurting your score because there's no new credit, no new account to contribute. I won't say hurts, because hurts makes it seem like it takes away. It doesn't add to. I'll just say it doesn't add to your score in terms of that credit. So that's the mixture that we have in terms of credit. That's our mixture. We got to have a nice mixture. We got to have a good payment history. We need the utilization rate. We need to pay on time. We need all of these things, the new credit to have, and the length of time to have a good score. All of these things comprise a good score. Now I want to spend time going through how do we get a 750 credit score. Those things will help us in terms of building our credit and having a good score. But to get the best scores, to get to 800, to get to 850, there are certain tips and strategies we're going to utilize to get the best scores. And that's what we're going to go through now, are the credit tips and tricks to get the best scores. To be able to get the best scores possible, there are some things that we're able to do. Tip number one, whatever existing credit card you have, you want to request a credit limit increase, a higher limit. If you've had a Capital One card for 7 years and had the same limit, you need to request an increase. A Citi card, 5 years, no increase, request an increase. A Chase card, request an increase. Get a high credit limit. And the key to doing this, you have to make sure that your credit utilization is low. If I have a card with a $2,000 limit, but I've charged it up to $1,900 and I request an increase, most likely they're going to deny me because I'm so close to the limit. But if I can get that card down to where I owe $400 on $2,000, so I have $1,600 free credit, they're more likely to give me an increase. The key to getting credit limits increases is to make it seem like you don't need the credit. And whenever you pay your balance down, it makes it seem to the banks, I don't need the credit, so they give you the credit. Our system doesn't make sense, but the more desperate you offer credit, the less likely they are to give you credit. And the more you need, the more that you don't need credit, the more credit they're gonna give you. It's an inverse proportion. And so if I want to get a credit limit increase, one of the best things I can do is pay my balance down. So if I owe $2,000, if I get it down to $1,000, I've showed them I freed up $1,000, and then I request an increase. They may say, okay, we're gonna take you to $2,500. We're gonna take you to $3,000. Whenever you get a credit limit increase and you don't use that increase, you've just improved your credit utilization ratio, which is gonna bump your score up. It's gonna take your score up because you don't need the credit. And a lot of credit card companies let you request this online. Capital One, I use a Capital One card for one thing. And you can request the increase right online. You don't have to talk to anybody. Same thing with Chase. I have those cards. You request them right online. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't want to do it though till you have some free space on your card and you just request it. A credit limit increase. Even if you get denied, you can still call the number and you can request it. That works as well. So even if you get denied by the computer, you call, speak to someone, you say, I've been here for 6 years, I've been at this credit limit, and I'd like to appeal the rejection, and I want to increase my credit limit. That works a lot of times. Most people don't call. They just take the initial rejection as I didn't get it and give up. Because if you call places like Chase and Capital One, they'll bump you up a lot of times because you took the time to call and request an increase. You need a decent credit limit in terms of to improve your score. It's hard when the credit limit is $500 and $1,000 to have a very high score because you don't have much credit. So you just need access. But that also doesn't mean go out and charge a ton just because you have a high credit limit. And we're going to talk about also how to improve the credit limit. So first, request a credit limit increase. That's excellent. The second thing we can do, let's say you say, okay, I'm struggling to get an increase. One of the things you do, this is a strategy that works. I did this myself. You can open multiple credit card accounts at the same bank. And what I mean by that is take Chase Bank, take whoever you utilize for your credit card. Once you get one card, I did American Express, you get one card and they give you a card. You pay it on time. You just show them for a year, I'm gonna make my payments on time. Then you apply for another card at the exact same bank. This worked with me at Chase. This worked with me at Capital One, every bank. You apply for another card they offer. You can take two cards with two separate limits. And as long as one card has a $0 balance, as long as you open a new account, it's got a $0 balance, you can merge the two credit limits into one and cancel the card. You can take two cards, and I did that at Capital One because they wouldn't increase me for a long time. And so I got two cards, merge them into one card, then you cancel it. You can merge credit cards at the same bank into one credit limit, but the key is one of the cards has to have a $0 in charges to do it. So you can take two cards, merge them together, and increase your credit limit. You can take three cards and do it. You can take four. I did that one place to get an $18,000 credit limit. You just merge it together. You take all the credit limits. You say, this is 4,000, this is 3, this is 5, this is 6. And you just put them all together and you keep one card with a massive credit limit. And now you have one card with a giant credit limit and you don't even need the other cards anymore. And so that's a strategy that works when you have multiple cards at the same bank. That works again and again, but one of them must be a zero. And that deals with the third tip of merging the balances together. That doesn't mean you merge your debt together, you're merging the credit limits. You're taking the credit limits and merge them together. And you can do that at a lot of them online. And then there are others you can call and say, I want to take my cards and put them together. Take my platinum card and put it with this gold card, or take my regular card and put it with this. You merge them together so you have a higher credit limit. And that shows your credit report. Well, the card you had that had a $3,000 limit, now it looks like it has a $6,000 limit. So you just freed up a lot of space on your card and increased again your utilization when you merge together. Credit utilization, this is a key we must know. Never, if you care about your credit score, never use more than 30% of your available credit on any one card, never. Do not max one card out and say, well, the other one's free, because you just used all the available credit on that. It's gonna hurt your score. Every card, whatever you charge on, whatever the loan is, never use more than 30%. Home equity line of credit, never more than 30% of your available credit on any loan. The people with the best credit scores in the United States of America only use 7 to 8% of their credit usage. So somebody has a $10,000 limit, they only use $700, $800 of it, and they have the highest scores. The person who uses 5,000 or 10,000 has a much lower score, even though they have access to the same capital, because they're using too much credit. So we never want to use more than 30%. So it's not only does credit utilization count for 30% of our score, you can never use over 30%. The minute you hit 31, your score drops because you're using too much credit. And the higher that you use your credit, as it hits 50%, 60%, they want to reduce your credit limit. So the more of your credit you use, you're gonna get letters in the mail. We've cut your credit, the credit you can access, we've cut your limit. So from 3,000, you've gone to 2,500. They reduce it because they think you're desperate for credit. And their thing is, you get ready to default, they get scared. Even though you paid on time, they think you're gonna stiff us and you're gonna leave me with a bill. And so they cut our credit. And so we never want to go over 30% of our available credit on any one card. Never go over 30% on any one card. Keep it very low. the good rule of thumb is 10% or below. 7 to 8 is the best, but if you can get below 10, you are doing outstanding in terms of using your credit. Our fifth tip, when you are applying for something, you want an excellent credit score, you have to apply for everything at the same time. You apply for all of your cards, all of your loans at the same time. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they say, I don't want to take a bad credit hit, so I'm only applying for one or two things. Then they apply a week later, 2 weeks later. Once you have someone run your credit, you have it all run in the same 2 to 3 days. You get everything at one time. When I get credit cards, and I got a lot of credit cards, I just don't use them. I applied all in the same day, one after another, after another, after another, after another, because you take the credit hit one time. You take that hit one time, and they're not notified yet you applied for all these things. They don't know. So that way you can shop it quick. It's like buying a car. If you're going to buy a car, you don't go Friday, let them run your credit. You don't go then, well, next week they run my credit. Then the next week, they know you shopping, looking. You do it all at one time. Okay, I'm going here, 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 these 3 places. I'm gonna run it back to back to back, get it over with before the credit bureau knows, because I'm gonna take a hit, but you got to take the hit at one time. That's why if you decide, well, I'm gonna get a credit card, you pick out the card you're gonna get and you apply that same day, one after the other, after the other. They're gonna send you the cards, you're gonna take a hit, but within 6 months, you come back with stronger credit because you have access to all these cards that you're not using. And so your credit score just shoots up because you have all this credit that you haven't used. And then within a year, all those things, the inquiries even drop off your credit. They even go away, that you applied for it and that you were looking, that even drops off. So a good rule of thumb, apply for any loans you need, anything you need at the same time. I always like to say 2 days is my max, but you can go up to 3 days. By the time you hit that 3rd day, they gonna know Experian, Equifax, Transunion, and then you start getting denied because you're looking for credit too much. And so then you'll get denials. We get denied. A 6th tip, and this one people don't know about a lot of times, you have bad credit or you're trying to improve your credit score. You have good credit, but you know somebody great credit. You don't ask them cosign because a lot of times people don't want to cosign for you, but you ask a family member with good credit to add you as an authorized user on a credit card. Don't co-sign for me. Add me where I get my own card on your account. Because then that credit card or whatever that loan is shows on your credit. And so you tie it together, but they're not co-signing for you. So it can be already their existing account. They're just adding you to it. Now, they really have to trust you to do that, or you really have to trust someone to do that, but you can add them as an authorized user. And today with credit cards, Capital One, American Express, any Visa you have, you can limit an authorized user. So you can make somebody an authorized user and say they can only charge $200. Anything over $200 will not be approved. So you protect yourself, or they can protect themselves. So they know you can't charge but so much. And really, you don't have to charge anything. It's just you being an authorized user takes your credit score up. You piggyback off their credit and you're an authorized user. And then you can even apply for your own account at the same place they are within a 9-month time period to get your own card and come off their account. An authorized user can be added or deleted at any time. They just go on the internet, go on the app, whatever the card is, add someone, and you can freeze a card, use it, whatever. But that increases our credit score. So you can ask someone, if you're looking for your score to go up, to add you as an authorized user on their card. This works well for spouses. So if one spouse has better credit than the other, they just have to say, add me to your account as an authorized user. That's easily done. Remember this for tip number 7, that you need high available credit limits with low usage rates. So you need high available credit limits with low usage rates. You don't have to use a credit card every month The only thing you have to do to keep a credit card active is once a year charge something, which means you can go buy gas once a year and your account stays open. You never have to use it. You just need the credit available. You never need to touch it, just have the credit available and keep it where the balance is at zero or very low. And if you keep your balance low enough, you keep it at zero, they're going to start mailing you checks and say, we want you to write a check to yourself for your limit. We're going to give you 0% interest. They're going to do anything they can to get you to use those cards. We'll give you 0% for 3 years. They'll do anything to get you to use them. 15 months, 0%, anything to use them, because the more available credit you have, the more attractive you are to banks and financial institutions, the more available credit that we have. Our 8th tip, be sure to get a copy of your credit report and dispute every single inaccuracy on your credit report. They have studies that show that most people's credit has inaccurate information on it. They only do an excellent job of keeping up with celebrities and making sure that their credit is perfect. They don't typically check day to day to make sure ours is accurate. They make that our job. So it's your job to check your credit report for accuracy, to make sure it's accurate. It's your job to catch any mistakes, any old accounts on there. You have to catch it. They are not going to do that. They don't get paid to do that, the credit bureaus. So it's our job to weed out the inaccuracies and to find those things on the credit report. Make sure your credit report is accurate and go to all 3 bureaus. Go to Experian, go to Equifax, and go to Transunion. Make sure it's accurate. That's why scores vary. They use different rating systems, and some people do not report to every bureau. So you may have a card that decides we report to Transunion, your card lender, but we not send it to Equifax. So you may have to do that so they know you have that loan and you paid it on time. That's why they are great inaccuracies on credit reports. We want to make sure they are accurate. Our 9th tip, individuals with bad credit are able to get loans by going to community banks and credit unions. They have what is known as credit builder loans or secured loans. So bad credit is, if your score is below 620, it's bad credit everywhere. If you below 620, it's bad credit. 610, 605 is bad credit. So if you have bad credit, you can get a credit builder loan from a community bank or a credit union. And one of them I know about is SECU. The State Employees Credit Union has what's known as Deposit Secured Loans. So they say you put $200 in the savings account, we will give you a secured loan for $200. You put $500 in the savings account, we will give you a secured loan for $500. That helps to build credit and to get a loan. That will show that you have installment loans. And so that's a good way of building our credit, is to go there. You're not going to find these at the Bank of America's, the Wells Fargo's, the JP Morgan Chases. Those banks do not exist to help us. Those banks exist to take our money and to help wealthy people. That's what those banks exist for. Credit unions are cooperatives that exist to help us. Credit unions work for the people. Banks work for the investors and the shareholders. So a credit builder loan is an excellent way to build up bad credit. And you can start with a small amount, but you can increase it. So if you had $3,000, you can put in the savings at CQ and you can have a deposit secured loan of $3,000. And then you just pay it back. You go ahead and pay it back to build up credit. But you have the $3,000 in the savings, so you always have the money that's equal to the loan that's taken. So that is another resource that can be utilized. Our tip number 10, we can also apply it for a secured credit card. And this is just an example. There are 1 million secured cards. If no one will give you a credit card, then you get a secured card. A credit card that you typically get is known as unsecured. And what that means is an unsecured credit card means all they do is run your credit. They do not require you to pledge any capital, any collateral. You are not putting your house up. You're not putting money up. You're not putting a car up. It's unsecured. And if you don't pay it, the credit card company is pretty much out of luck because they have to try to go to court to sue you. And they have to try to get a garnishment or something. And they lose those cases a lot of times. That's why credit cards start with low limits a lot of times, because it's hard for them to get the money from us. A secured credit card is secured by an asset, not your house, not your car, but by a bank deposit, just like a secured loan. They want you to deposit money at the bank, and then they give you a card where the credit limit is attached to your savings account so that they know they have the money. This is a good way to start. And if I go back about 15 years, I had very bad credit 15 years ago. And I started with that card, a Capital One secured card, and worked my way up to a regular one and then to 850, 860 credit score. But it took time. But you can apply for a secured credit card. You only got to have to keep one of these for 9 months. As soon as 9 months ended, I got rid of this card. But for 9 months, it helped build my credit history till I could get an unsecured credit card. So you may have to start with a secured if you have a bad credit score, and then work your way to an unsecured card. But if you can start right at an unsecured card, start right there. You can skip this step. So if your score is 620 or above, you can skip this step. If it's 580, 550, 530, you have to start there. If you go to the store and they say you can't even charge bubble gum, then you have to start here, and then we work our way up from here. But it's not a bad place to start. Everybody has to start somewhere. Our 11th tip number 11, remember this, I'm gonna go through this quickly. Keep your old unused credit card accounts open. Never, ever close your oldest credit card account. If you have a credit card from 20 years ago, that is your strongest, that's the strongest loan you're gonna have on your credit report. Don't close it. Your score will drop dramatically. Just because you pay it off does not mean you close it. You keep it. You never want to lose that credit limit. You never want to lose that old card because that's your oldest established credit. And so you always want to keep the old things with you. That old credit card, that M&T Bank credit card, you keep it. You keep those cards with you, that old card, even if it's unused. Store it in a safe, store it, lock it away somewhere, but keep it so you have access to that credit in terms of when your credit report, even when you don't need it, it's still boosting your score, which will give you very low interest rates. Our tip number 12, be sure to deal with your past due payments, charge-offs, and all collection accounts. Now, I'm a believer in you should try to pay your old debts, but I'm also a believer if you have a debt if it's 7 years old, 6.5, and it's gonna fall off, I don't believe you have to go back and take care of that. You already took the charge off, they've already written it off, it's already hit your credit, it's already dinged it. You just let that fall off. You just contact the credit bureaus and say, this debt is now 7.5 years old. This debt is at 7 years old. It's in its 7.5 years, 8 years. It's an old debt, write it off. And they have to remove it. As long as the bank has not gotten a judgment against you, they must remove it. So past due charge-offs and collection accounts do not necessarily have to be paid. You can always settle old collection accounts. You make a settlement offer. And I did this years ago. So if they tell you, we'll settle your account for $3,000, you never take it. And you don't talk to them on the phone. You write letters. You write a letter, I can't pay $3,000. I might be able to pay $800. They write you back, no, we can't do $800, we'll do $1,000. You negotiate. You go back and forth in a letter. You never speak to a customer service representative because they'll lie to you and tell you whatever you need to hear to get you to send in payments. You always get it in letter form, And that's for collection accounts that could hurt your credit. Once it's already dinged your credit and it's years old, unless there's a judgment against you, you typically just let that fall off. You try to build new credit to push that way down and to hurt and to stop the effect that it has of hurting you. So it's no point going back 6 years, 6.5 years. You already written off as what's known as the R9, which is bad credit, bad debt expense. It's already done. But anything you can catch before it hurts the credit. And that's why when we make settlement offers, we want them to say, I paid this as agreed. I paid this whole balance. Even if you settle it for 800, you still want them to report you paid off the 3,000. And they'll do that. They will do that for collection accounts. There's a difference between past due payments. Those are things within a year. You want to take care of those. Collection accounts, those are things they're still trying to get. They've sold your debt to a collection agency. And charge-offs are where they just gave up. They wrote it off. We're never getting this money. They just ding the credit. And they're not even trying to get it from you. Those can be left alone if they're very old, and then you just have them removed from your credit report. Our 13th tip, tip number 13. You can also use services, and I'm gonna remove paid from this because it's free now, but you can use services like Experian Boost. It's free, it costs nothing. Experian has a service called Boost, which will give you credit for gas and electric payments. Those are utility payments, smartphone payments, Verizon payments, whoever you're paying, T-Mobile, they give you credit for that. Internet, your service provider, Netflix payments, Hulu payments, they'll give you credit for that with Experian. The Experian Credit Bureau has something called Experian Boost that's free now. It's totally free, and you can get credit. They will scan your bills and see what can they give you a boost for your credit. The average boost you'll get is 10 points. So this won't take you up 100, 80, or 50, but it will give you about 10 points. Some people go up 20, 30 points, but the average is 10 where you can get credit. This even helps people who rent, because a lot of times when you rent, they only report what you don't pay. But if you do pay, they don't report it a lot of times. This will give you credit for that, but only with Experian. They don't tell Equifax or Transunion. This only works with Experian, and you can go to the Experian website, look for Boost, and it's free. At one time, it was a paid service, but now it is a free service that anybody can utilize to get credit for payments you make. And that's a good thing, because I always felt they should give credit for the payments we make. You pay your phone bill on time each month, you should get credit for it. You pay your internet bill, you should get credit for it. You pay Netflix, Hulu, YouTube TV, you should get credit for it. Whoever you're paying, you should get credit for it. Our 14th tip, tip number 14, and we just gonna go through one or two more of these. You can always ask your lender to lower your interest rate. A lot of people don't know this, but whenever you get a credit card, a home loan, a car loan, you can make a request known as lower my interest rate. Credit card companies are quick to lower your interest rate. You just have to call them. So you have 25% interest. All you do is contact them and say, I want you to lower my interest rate. And most times they're gonna lower your interest rate. They're gonna take it down, because credit card companies, as I wrote here, they hate to lose customers. They will decrease your interest rate before they lose your business. And so one of the things you want to do is just get your balance down as low as possible. Pay as much as you can. So you can say, I can pay down another $500, do that. I can pay it down another $250, do that. Then when you do that, let a month go by, let it hit your credit report. Then you call them and ask for what's known as an interest rate deduction. I want you to lower my interest rate, is what you tell them. We'll put you on hold, transfer, do all these things, but they're gonna come back and tell you, most likely, this happens all the time, you have a lower rate, because they want to keep you as a customer. And the lower your balance gets, the closer it gets to zero, the more afraid they are you're gonna leave. If I owe my credit card company $8,000, they don't worry about me going anywhere, so they're not concerned. But if I owe my credit company $200, $300, they're very worried you paying this card off, you about to leave us. And so they're going to be more generous and lowering the interest rates. They're going to be more generous and increasing my credit limit. They'll be more generous there than if I'm right up on the credit limit and I'm paying fees for going over my limit. They feel no pressure to lower my interest rate and no pressure to increase my credit limit. So one of the great tools we have, lower your balance and then ask them lower your interest rate. And if you want a low interest rate on credit cards, I'm not going to discuss it all tonight, but if you want a low interest rate, you always know your best rates are going to come from credit unions. If you can get a card through your credit union like SECU, or if you can go to a community bank, you can go to a bank that's more for you. M&T has a much lower rate than you're going to get from a Capital One. M&T's interest rate is much lower. You can get a more reasonable rate than you get from there. Bank credit cards like a Bank of America, and those are tougher to get, but they're going to have lower rates because banks are more rigorous in their credit standards, but you also will get a lower rate. That's possible to get a credit card with 8%, 7%, whereas a Capital One is going to try to hit you with 24, 25, 23. You're going to pay a whole lot more in interest. That's 3 times the interest for the same card. And remember this, for our tip number 15, it is possible to improve your credit score every 30 to 60 days based on the frequency that the creditor reports to the credit reporting agencies. You can take your score up every month. It is possible. It depends on how often they report your loan. Some people report quicker than others. Toyota is normally very good. Toyota normally would do every 30, 60 days. They report. Nissan may report every 30, 60 days. Where there's some other companies, they'll wait for a quarter to pass and say, well, we only report every 90 days. But they'll report your payments. They just do it every 90 days. Some people report much quicker than others. So your score can go up every 30 to 60 days based on the frequency that they report to the credit reporting agency. And that varies. And you also have to find out, well, you don't have to call and find out, but as you look at your report, you will find out who do they report to. Is it Experian? Is it Transunion? Or is it Equifax? You'll see. Typically, lenders do not tell all 3 bureaus. Typically, they don't do that. They pick 1 or 2, but not all 3. So it's our job to make sure all 3 receive it. So your score can increase every 30 to 60 days. And the jump of your score will depend on the score itself. If I have a 500 credit score, I could easily go up 120 points in a month or 2, because I'm going from horrible credit to fair credit. But if I have a credit score of 720, for me to get to 800 is not as easy. To go up those 80 points, because I'm trying to move from very good to excellent. So I may only go up 10 points, 20 points at a time, because my score is much higher. Whereas if my score is much lower, it'll jump easier. That's why when somebody got a 350, they can jump to 600, because they go on from bad credit to bad credit. So it's just going up. That 250, they're still in bad credit. Someone else with a high score is going to be tougher. They go move up slower. That's why once you hit the 700s, it's slower. The process is slow, but you're already good credit, so it doesn't matter. You already are in good credit range, so you're already getting the best offers. That's when you get the best banks come looking for you. You get the offers of, we pre-approved you at 0%. We pre-approved you at 3%. You get the best offers.